People often misunderstand Sigma males. Some say they're cold, others think they're arrogant or just don't care. But what most people miss is that Sigma males aren't trying to be distant, they're protecting something most people don't even notice. Sigma males are different. They think deeply, stay quiet, and move through life with a sense of calm control. They don't chase attention, and they don't try to fit in. Psychologists say they're one of the rarest personality types, independent, private, and almost impossible to influence. That's why people make so many wrong assumptions. They judge the surface but never really understand what's going on underneath. And because Sigma males don't feel the need to explain themselves, they get labeled, when in truth, they're simply careful about who they let in. But every now and then, something shifts. Something, or someone, breaks through the wall. And when it happens, it's quiet, real, and deeply meaningful. Let's explore the rare moments when Sigma males drop their guard, and why that moment changes everything. Number 1, you respect their need for solitude without taking it personally. To understand why solitude is sacred to a Sigma male, you must first recognize that their withdrawal is not rejection, it's restoration. While others interpret their silence as indifference, you saw it for what it truly was, a vital recalibration of their mind. Sigma males operate on a different social frequency, one that requires regular disconnection to maintain clarity. Where most people recharge through interaction, they recharge through introspection. Their retreats into solitude aren't escapes from the world, but returns to their natural state of equilibrium. What set you apart wasn't merely tolerating these absences, it was your intuitive grasp of their purpose. When they vanished for days or weeks without notice, you didn't perceive it as abandonment or a personal slight. You recognized that their need for space wasn't a reflection of your worth, but a non-negotiable aspect of their psychology. While others bombarded them with demands for attention, why won't you answer? Are you mad at me? You gave them room to breathe. This absence of pressure was revelatory. For once, they weren't forced to choose between their own equilibrium and someone else's insecurity. The magic of your approach lay in its simplicity. You treated their solitude not as a problem to solve, but as a rhythm to respect. Where others saw a locked door, you recognized a necessary pause. This understanding created something extraordinary, a connection that didn't demand constant maintenance to survive. Most relationships drain a Sigma male because they're built on expectations of perpetual availability. Yours thrived precisely because it didn't. And here's the paradox, by not chasing them, you became impossible to ignore. Your willingness to grant space without resentment signaled something profound, that you valued them, not just their attention. In a world where most equate love with possession and care with control, your restraint felt revolutionary. It proved you weren't just another person trying to extract emotional labor from them, but someone who genuinely understood their nature. That's why, when they re-emerged from their solitude, it was you they sought. Not the ones who complained about their silence, but the one who honored it. In time, those solitary pauses grew shorter. Not because you asked, but because they no longer feared being swallowed whole by another's needs. You had done the impossible, made intimacy feel safe for someone who associates closeness with suffocation. For a Sigma male, that's not just rare. It's transformative. Number 2, you showed up when there was nothing to gain. Most people don't realize it, but Sigma males are constantly measuring one thing, intention. Not the words people say, not how loudly they claim to care, but the quiet patterns behind their actions. And nothing reveals someone's true intent faster than how they act when there's nothing in it for them. You didn't show up because it was convenient or because there was an audience to applaud your effort. You didn't hover around when things were exciting and then vanish the moment the energy faded. You stayed, when there was no reward, no spotlight, and nothing that made you look better. And for a Sigma, that's not just rare, it's disarming. They've learned the hard way that most people only show up when it benefits them, when the timing is right, when there's something to be gained, when loyalty can be converted into leverage. They've seen how quickly, "I'm here for you," turns into silence once the room gets dark. That's why they don't open up easily. That's why they observe first, trust later, and let time do the talking. So when someone shows up with nothing to prove, no strings, no performance, just presence, it breaks a rule they've built their life around. It challenges the idea that no one stays unless they're getting something in return. And that's exactly when the guard slips, even just a little. Not because they finally believe in people again, but because, for the first time in a long time, someone didn't make them feel like a transaction. Most will never notice the shift. But the Sigma does. And you? You're not where you used to be. You're closer now, quietly, permanently, and without a word. Number 3, you match their depth without demanding they shallow the waters. Sigma males don't just prefer depth, they require it the way lungs require air. Surface-level interactions don't merely bore them, they actively drain their spirit. While others skate across pleasantries and small talk, Sigma males are built to dive into the undertow of human experience, the unspoken truths, the uncomfortable questions, the raw mechanics of existence that most avoid. This is why most social settings exhaust them. Not because they dislike people, but because they hunger for conversations that most never dare to have. They want to discuss the fragility of morality, the weight of time, the quiet despair lurking beneath modern life, not the weather or weekend plans. When they test the waters with a probing thought or controversial opinion, most people either deflect or dismiss it. But you dove in beside them. What captivated them wasn't just your ability to keep pace intellectually, but your refusal to sanitize reality for comfort's sake. When they questioned societal norms, you didn't rush to defend the status quo. When they confessed a dark thought, you didn't flinch or pathologize it. You met their depth with your own, creating a rare space where their mind could unfold without apology. This dynamic revealed something critical. You weren't engaging with them for entertainment or ego-stroking, but because you, too, found nourishment in the depths. Where others pressured them to lighten up or stop overthinking, you recognized their intensity as a form of intelligence. Their analytical nature wasn't a burden to you, it was a lens you respected, even when it focused on uncomfortable truths. The impact of this cannot be overstated. For a Sigma male, being met at this level is akin to spending years speaking a language no one understands, only to finally encounter someone fluent. It's not just about shared interests, it's about shared dimensions. You didn't just tolerate their depth, you echoed it, proving that the parts of themselves they usually had to hide were actually the parts you valued most. And so, walls designed to keep others out became bridges inviting you in. Not because you dismantled their defenses, but because you showed them they weren't alone in the depths. In a world that constantly asks them to shallow their waters, you were the exception, someone who didn't just let them be deep, but loved them for it. For a Sigma male, that kind of understanding isn't just rare. It's unforgettable. Number 4, you made them feel understood without needing to be right. One of the most misunderstood aspects of the Sigma male personality isn't their apparent distance, it's how profoundly misunderstood they often feel. For individuals who keep so much inside their own minds, who constantly question the world without always verbalizing those questions, the simple experience of being truly seen, without interruption, correction, or judgment, carries extraordinary weight. Sigma males don't crave applause. They don't seek approval. And they certainly don't require someone to agree with their every word. What they secretly desire, though rarely admit, is far more fundamental: to be heard without being reshaped, to speak without being edited mid-sentence by someone determined to improve their perspective. They have no interest in winning arguments or dominating discussions simply to prove their intelligence. In fact, they find such behavior exhausting. That's why when they encounter someone who can simply listen, without adjusting their meaning, without twisting their words into more palatable versions, without needing to challenge or one-up their thoughts, the impact is profound in ways most people never grasp. This isn't about validation. It's about respect. And for Sigma males, respect manifests through restraint. When someone creates space for their thoughts without turning the moment into a debate, it communicates something that loud admiration never could. You're seeing the structure behind their silence, not just the words in front of it. This variety of understanding isn't soft or accommodating, it's sharp and rare in a world obsessed with opinions. It doesn't seek approval or echo empty praise. It simply allows them to exist, without explanation, without justification, without conforming to someone else's notion of what should make sense. In these rare moments, something remarkable happens: they relax. Not because they've been proven right, but because for once, they haven't had to defend their right to speak at all. Number 5, you've been betrayed too, so you get it. There's a different kind of silence left in people who've been betrayed. It's not loud, not bitter, but still heavy and sharp in all the places people can't see. Sigma males know that silence well because they carry it too. You didn't earn their trust by being cheerful, charming, or endlessly supportive. You earned it because when they looked at you, they saw something familiar, not in how you acted, but in how you held yourself. There was no desperation to be liked, no over-explaining your loyalty, no mask built out of fake positivity. You moved like someone who'd lost a piece of themselves once, and quietly rebuilt without asking anyone to notice. That's where the connection began, not in shared interests, but in shared damage. You didn't flinch at their emotional distance because you understood where it came from. You didn't press for answers or ask why they were so guarded, because you knew those questions are rarely asked by someone who truly gets it. It's not sympathy that makes a Sigma lower his defenses. It's recognition. He isn't drawn to those who try to save him. He opens up to the ones who've survived something similar, and didn't turn bitter. You never asked for his trust. And that's exactly why you earned it. You didn't try to convince him to open up. You didn't dig into his past like you were owed an explanation. You just stayed quiet, stayed present, and made sure he didn't have to carry the weight alone. In a world that rushes to fix pain it doesn't understand, you simply stood beside it. And that kind of stillness isn't forgettable. It's how a Sigma knows, this person doesn't just understand me. They've bled in the same places. Number 6, you're honest, even when it costs you. For most people, honesty is a tool, used when safe, polished when convenient, and bent when the truth might cost them something. But Sigma males don't respect polished honesty. They value the messy kind, the kind that risks connection, comfort, or image and still chooses to be real. They noticed it when you spoke up. Maybe you voiced the uncomfortable truth in the room. Maybe you admitted something no one else dared to say aloud. Maybe you refused to sugarcoat reality, even when silence would have been easier. It didn't make you look perfect, but it made you real. And Sigma males don't open up to perfection. They open up to clarity. They've been lied to with a smile. They've been flattered with empty words. They've watched people pretend to care until the mask slipped. So when someone offers them raw, unfiltered truth, they don't recoil, they lean in. This isn't about brutal honesty. It's about honest presence. You didn't weaponize the truth, you held it up like a mirror and let them decide what to do with it. That kind of honesty earns something subtle, respect, yes, but also caution. Because Sigma males know that people who are honest with others are usually just as honest with themselves. And that makes you dangerous, in the best way possible. You became someone they didn't have to decode. Someone whose words weren't traps or rehearsed lines. Someone who wouldn't coddle their feelings at the expense of reality. And that's what made them lower their guard, not because you said the right thing, but because for once, they didn't have to wonder if you meant it. Number 7, you challenge them intellectually without making it a competition. Sigma males don't respect blind agreement, they value minds that engage with theirs on equal footing. What made you different wasn't that you always concurred with them, but that you knew when and how to push back. Where others either deferred to their opinions out of intimidation or argued just to dominate, you engaged their ideas with genuine curiosity and thoughtful counterpoints. You didn't treat conversations as battles to be won, but as collaborative explorations, and that made all the difference. Most people fall into one of two categories with Sigma males, those who nod along, afraid to disagree, and those who turn every discussion into a power struggle. The first group bores them, the second exhausts them. But you? You occupied the rarest middle ground, someone who could question their logic without dismissing it, who could offer alternative perspectives without diminishing theirs. When they presented an unconventional viewpoint, you didn't react with knee-jerk skepticism. Instead, you considered it, tested its edges, and responded with substance rather than superficiality. This intellectual reciprocity signaled something profound, that you weren't intimidated by their intelligence, nor were you threatened by it. You weren't trying to beat them in debate or flatter them into approval, you were engaging because you genuinely valued the exchange. And for a Sigma male, that's electrifying. They spend so much of their lives either holding back to avoid overwhelming others or disengaging to avoid pointless conflicts that finding someone who can match their rigor without turning it into a rivalry feels like discovering an intellectual home. What sealed the connection was your ability to challenge them without condescension. When you disagreed, it wasn't with the dismissive tone of someone trying to prove superiority, it was with the respect of someone who saw their mind as worth wrestling with. You didn't just listen to respond, you listened to understand, and when you pushed back, it was because you truly considered their stance. That level of engagement is catnip to a Sigma male. It tells them, I don't just want your attention, I want your thoughts. And here's the most crucial part, you didn't take it personally when they challenged you in return. Where others might have bristled or shut down, you welcomed the friction. That mutual sharpening of minds created a dynamic where neither of you had to dull your edges to preserve the other's ego. In a world full of people who either placate or provoke, you became the exception, someone who could handle their intensity without either retreating or retaliating. For a Sigma male, that's the ultimate test of trust, not whether someone agrees with them, but whether they can disagree well. And you passed. Not with grand gestures, but with the quiet confidence of someone secure enough to spar intellectually without needing to land a knockout blow. That's when they knew, you weren't just another voice in the crowd. You were a mind worth returning to. Number 8, you never try to use them. For a Sigma male, trust doesn't erode because of mistakes, it shatters the moment they realize someone views them as a means to an end. Sigma males possess an almost instinctual ability to detect motives. They observe how people enter their lives, what they prioritize, what behaviors they mirror, and what they subtly expect in return. Over time, they've learned that many connections aren't built on genuine bonds but on quiet strategies, people attaching themselves for access, advantage, or even a borrowed sense of identity. This is why they proceed cautiously with others, silently testing intentions, never fully relaxing around those who always seem to need something. It's not paranoia, it's experience. They know what it's like to be valued for the wrong reasons, praised, followed, or supported not for who they are, but for what they can offer, protect, or provide. So when someone enters their world without ulterior motives, without testing boundaries, without trying to extract something before disappearing, something shifts. You weren't calculating. You didn't flatter to gain favor or wait for the perfect moment to ask for a favor. You engaged as a person, not a strategist. To a Sigma male, this is disarming in a way most people don't understand. So many of their relationships operate on unspoken trades: attention for access, empathy for control, closeness for leverage. What set you apart wasn't what you said, it was what you didn't seek. No angle, no transaction, no hidden agenda. And when someone brings no motive, they become unforgettable. Because Sigma males don't fear being misunderstood, they fear being used without realizing it until it's too late. This time, they didn't have to second guess. Number 9. You demonstrate unwavering consistency without needing recognition. Sigma males have a finely tuned radar for authenticity. They can spot performative behavior from miles away. What earned your place in their inner world wasn't grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but something far more rare: the quiet, day-after-day proof of your character. While others tried to impress them with intermittent bursts of effort, you simply were steady, reliable, and unshakably real, regardless of who was watching. They noticed how you treated people when nothing was at stake, not just them, but the waiter, the stranger asking for directions, the coworker everyone else ignored. Your values weren't situational, they were ingrained. You didn't shift personalities based on your audience or modify your principles for convenience. This consistency was your silent resume, and they were studying every page. Where others sought their approval with curated versions of themselves, you presented the same person at every turn: no filters, no facade, no sudden shifts in demeanor when you thought they might be judging. That reliability became a safe harbor in the storm of human unpredictability they'd learned to expect. Even more crucially, you never demanded applause for your integrity. Your actions weren't transactions designed to earn their trust, they were simply expressions of who you were. This mattered because Sigma males have a sixth sense for discrepancy. They've seen too many people act one way in private and another in public, or change tactics the moment they thought it might benefit them. But you? You were predictable in the most extraordinary way, predictably authentic. Over time, that created a foundation so solid that their usual defenses became unnecessary. Walls built to keep out inconsistency started to crumble, not because you'd broken them down, but because you'd proven they weren't needed. For a Sigma male, that's the ultimate comfort: someone whose presence doesn't require constant vigilance. They didn't have to brace for hidden agendas or decode mixed signals with you. You simply were who you were: no surprises, no games, no emotional whiplash. In a world full of people who shapeshift for approval, you stood as living proof that some roots run too deep to bend. And that's why, when they finally let you in, it wasn't with fanfare or dramatic pronouncements. It was with the quiet certainty of someone who'd found solid ground after years of walking on sand. Number 10. You see their shadows without turning away. Every Sigma male carries scars they don't advertise: wounds from betrayals, disillusionments, or the quiet loneliness of being perpetually misunderstood. Most only engage with the composed, capable version they present to the world. But you? You noticed the flickers of vulnerability they couldn't entirely hide, the hesitation before trusting, the guardedness in their humor, the way their silence sometimes held more fatigue than indifference. What bonded them to you wasn't that you fixed these shadows, but that you acknowledged them without exploitation or pity. When they revealed a past hurt, you didn't sensationalize it or use it as leverage for intimacy. When they showed frustration with the world's superficiality, you didn't dismiss it as cynicism, you recognized it as the byproduct of seeing too clearly for too long. This created a profound safety. They could let their guard down incrementally, testing the waters with small admissions, and each time, you met them with neither overreaction nor indifference, just calm, grounded recognition. Where others either pathologized their guarded nature or tried to bulldoze through it, you treated their defenses as logical rather than pathological. The magic was in your balance. You didn't romanticize their pain, but you didn't minimize it either. You saw their darkness as part of their wholeness, not something to eradicate, but something to understand. When they shared a regret or insecurity, you didn't rush to reassure them with empty platitudes. You honored the weight of what they'd shared by sitting with it alongside them. This is the alchemy that transforms a Sigma male solitude into chosen connection. Someone who witnesses their full spectrum, strengths and flaws, brilliance and broken edges, and doesn't flinch. You became the exception to their rule that most people can't handle the real me. Not because you were exceptionally strong or wise, but because you were exceptionally present. And in that presence, they found something they'd stopped expecting, a mirror that reflected all of them, not just the easy parts. For someone accustomed to being half-seen, that level of recognition isn't just comforting. It's life-altering. Conclusion: the Sigma male's rare trust, earned, never given. For the Sigma male, trust isn't distributed freely, it's earned through silent observation, tested through time, and awarded only when someone proves themselves an exception to every rule they've learned about human nature. You didn't win their loyalty by demanding it, performing for it, or smothering them with attention. You earned it in the quiet spaces most overlook. By respecting their solitude without making it about you. By diving into the depths without asking them to shallow their waters. By challenging their mind without turning dialogue into dominance. By proving your consistency without needing applause. By seeing their shadows without turning away. These weren't grand gestures, they were quiet revolutions. Where others saw aloofness, you recognized autonomy. Where others took their silence personally, you understood it as sacred. And in doing so, you did what few ever manage, you made connection feel safe for someone who associates closeness with compromise. For the Sigma male, this changes everything. Walls built over a lifetime don't collapse, they dissolve, rendered unnecessary by the rarest kind of presence, one that asks nothing but offers everything. Final thought. Sigma males don't need saving, fixing, or convincing. They need one thing, someone worth letting in. And if you're reading this recognizing yourself in these pages, know this, you were that person. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. And for a Sigma male, that's the only currency that matters. Stay strong. Keep evolving. And remember, the strongest bonds are forged not in noise, but in the spaces between words. Thank you for watching.